Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it's Saturday, Week 7. Time to give you all the injury news and updates. Once I go through all of the player notes throughout the league, I will give you my final rankings at every position. But before we get into those, let's bring up the healthy teams. Some good news to start the video. If you have any Atlanta Falcons, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, Detroit Lions, or Seattle Seahawks, everyone appears to be healthy heading into this week. Denver and New Orleans have already played. Chicago and Dallas are on bye. Let's get into these updates where in Arizona, Marvin Harrison Jr. is active, cleared from the concussion protocol. He will suit up. He will be active on Monday night. Michael Wilson, though, the number 2 receiver, is questionable, dealing with an ankle injury, was limited on Thursday, Friday, but is expected to play. I do think he will suit up. In Buffalo, Ray Davis, questionable with a calf injury, full on Wednesday, but then downgraded to limited on Thursday and Friday. So not ideal, but it sounds like he'll be available. I do think he will play, but he will be the backup this week. He's not going to get the start because James Cook is active. He was full in practice this week. He missed last week, and he'll be just fine. James Cook is a must start. In Carolina, Jonathan Brooks, the rookie second-round pick, remains out. They did open his practice window off of IR, and he was limited on Wednesday and Friday, but he did rest, did not practice on Thursday. But they're not ready to get him going. He will not play in this game, and Chuba Hubbard's role is not in question. So he'll be fine. Jonathan Brooks not quite ready to go, but Diontae Johnson is questionable with an ankle injury along with hamstring and rib listed on the injury report. So he is banged up. He did not practice Wednesday or Thursday, but did return as a limited participant on Friday. And last week he barely practiced, but did play through it. It was only his ankle, though, listed on the report. So he is a game time decision for Sunday. I think he's a true 50-50 call. I do not feel 100% certain if Diontae Johnson will play. So if he doesn't, that hurts the offense in general, but would be an upgrade to Xavier Legette and maybe even Jonathan Mingo. I think Legette could see close to 10 targets if there's no Diontae Johnson. But in general, I think this is mainly an upgrade for the Washington Commanders defense. I think without their best receiver, that offense could struggle. All you have to do is really stop Chuba Hubbard. Adam Thielen, though, is on IR still, but could return in Week 8. If healthy, that's the earliest time he could return. But I'm just assuming things. I do not know if he is trending towards practicing next week. In Cleveland, Jerome Ford is out with a hamstring injury, so there will be more touches available for Nick Chubb, who will get the start. He is active off of IR. That knee injury seems to be behind him, and he will play for the first time this year in Week 7 against the Bengals. But without Jerome Ford and also Nyheim Hines, who's not set to make his debut, Pierre Strong and D'Onta Foreman will be the backups. So I do think they're involved. I'm not quite sure which one is more involved, but I don't think Nick Chubb will all of a sudden get like 25 touches in his first game back. So happy to see him on the field, but I do want to temper expectations. I do not expect a true 3-down role for Nick Chubb in Week 7. In Green Bay, Marshawn Lloyd remains on IR. He's not quite ready to return. So Emmanuel Wilson is the clear backup to Josh Jacobs with A.J. Dillon on season-ending IR. But Luke Musgrave also on IR for a few more weeks means Tucker Kraft remains relevant. He is a top 20 tight end, but you probably lost some confidence after last week. Dontayvion Wicks, questionable with a shoulder injury, limited all week in practice. I do expect will play. However, Jayden Reed is good to go. He was full in practice on Friday, and that ankle injury, not a problem. He is fully active. Jayden Reed will suit up. So Dontayvion Wicks, not as interesting. There'd be more volume available if Reed was inactive. But in Houston, as expected, Nico Collins remains on IR. He will for at least until Week 10. That'd be the earliest he can return from that hamstring injury. So Dalton Schultz and Tank Dell are the main benefactors. They will step up. But Stephon Diggs kind of remains the same as I mentioned earlier in the rankings video on Wednesday. In Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor is out. Kind of a surprise. I thought maybe he would play. He was sounding more optimistic about his health. So Trey Sermon would be the RB1 in the Colts backfield, but Tyler Goodson still involved, and we will see what happens with Anthony Richardson as the quarterback. No more Joe Flacco. Richardson is good to go and will get the start. They have a lot invested in their 4th overall pick. They need him to develop. It makes sense why he's getting some snaps now that he is fully healthy. So he'll get the start. That's a downgrade to the receivers, but they're all questionable for this game. Michael Pittman didn't practice Wednesday or Friday with his back injury, but was full on Thursday. Last week he was full only on 1 day of practice as well. And I do think Michael Pittman will suit up. I do think he will play. Same with Josh Downs, who's questionable with a toe injury. He didn't practice Wednesday, but then was limited both Thursday and Friday. So I expect him to play. They're both game time decisions, but kind of like last week, I'm not actually expecting them to miss. Alec Pierce, questionable himself with a shoulder injury, full Wednesday and Friday, but did not practice at all on Thursday. So maybe it's just precautionary. Maybe it was just rest. I do expect Alec Pierce to play, and if you start him, you're just hoping for a 50-yard touchdown to hit. So risky proposition with all of these Colts receivers. Now that Anthony Richardson is the quarterback, it does not feel as safe. Maybe one of them goes off, but definitely not all three. In Jacksonville, Travis Etienne is questionable with his hamstring injury. On Monday, he was listed as doubtful, so he is trending in the right direction. He was limited all week in practice and is a game time decision. I still think it's 50-50. I'm not 100% sure if Etienne will play. Assuming he does, then Tank Bigsby loses some value, but I still prefer Bigsby overall. Etienne has not been safe, and I would also be worried that he doesn't even finish the game, just like last week, where he barely played on like 3 touches. So Tank Bigsby would be the safer bet, but Etienne sounds like he might suit up on Sunday. In Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco remains on IR, but his recovery timeline was 6 to 8 weeks, and that means we're getting closer to his return. He could return as early as week 9 or perhaps as late as week 11. So he'll be back soon. You might only have to wait 1 more week without Isaiah Pacheco after this game. Rashee Rice, though, is on IR, same with Hollywood Brown, but CEH is coming off of IR. He is active for this matchup, and he will compete with Kareem Hunt for some touches, but I mainly expect him to get some targets. I think he'll be more of a problem for Samaje Perine, not as much for Kareem Hunt. I still trust Kareem the most in this backfield. JuJu Smith-Schuster, though, questionable as well with a hamstring injury, limited in practice on Thursday, but is expected to play. Andy Reid sounds very confident he will suit up, but he's still a game time decision. Barring a setback, JuJu will play and be active in this game. The Chargers offense, though, is without Gus Edwards. He's on IR, so Kimani Vidal is the main benefactor, but there are some injuries at receiver as well. Ladd McConkey is questionable with a hip injury. He was limited all week in practice. I do think he will play. However, Quentin Johnston is doubtful to suit up. He did not practice at all this week, so that opens the door for Josh Palmer. However, maybe DJ Chark gets involved as well. He was limited in practice this week also, and they opened his 21-day window to participate. He might play on Monday. It's not a guarantee. He's still questionable, but it sounds like a little bit better odds for DJ Chark to get on the field. So I'm not trusting him yet. I do think Palmer gained some value, though, without Quentin Johnston available. But overall, Ladd McConkey is the only one I'm really trusting as a legit flex option. But there's also an injury at tight end in LA where Hayden Hurst is doubtful with a groin injury. He did not practice at all this week. So Will Dissly and Simi Fehoko might get some targets as well. They have stepped up a little bit over the last few games. You might get 4+ points from Dissly without a touchdown. I did rank him top 25. In LA for the Rams, though, Puka Nacua remains on IR. He might return in week 8, but that would be the soonest possible. It's still a bit up in the air when he will come back. But Cooper Kupp probably returns this week. He was limited in practice all week long and is listed as questionable with that ankle injury. But if he's limited, I think he's a game time decision, likely to play. I would expect Cooper Kupp back on the field in week 7. Jordan Whittington, the rookie, also questionable, limited all week in practice as well, just like Cooper Kupp. Dealing with a shoulder injury, I do expect him to play, but it's pretty crowded behind Kupp. I would have a hard time trusting him as the number 2 receiver. Tyler Higbee, though, remains out, but there is some positive news. His recovery is ahead of schedule, so he'll probably suit up at some point this season, but not right now for the moment, Colby Parkinson would still be their starting tight end. In Las Vegas, Jakobi Meyers, their number one receiver with no more Davante Adams, is doubtful. I do not expect him to play. He did not practice all week long with his ankle injury. So he missed last week, and there wasn't really like a clear player to step up behind him. It's a mishmash of names, and I don't trust anyone in the Raiders offense other than Brock Bowers. Even though Zamir White is probably returning this week. He was full in practice on Friday with his groin injury. He was limited Wednesday, Thursday. He hasn't played in a while. I do think Zamir will play, but I really have no interest. Zamir has been bad this season, and I still only would rank Madison as the number one option. I only think this impacts Abdullah as a name to cross off the list. Zamir White is not inside my top 50 rankings at running back. Michael Mayer remains out, so it's really just Brock Bowers and no one else in this offense. In Miami, though, Odell Beckham Jr. questionable, probably plays, but it's a little up in the air. But Tua Tagovailoa sounds like he will return in week 8. That's at least the plan off his concussion. He's still on IR at the moment, but it seems like he will start practicing in week 8 and make his return to the field next week. So some positive news if you have Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, but this week they're still rolling with Huntley. In Minnesota, TJ Hockenson remains out. They did open his practice window back in week 5, and although he was limited this week, they did not clear him to play. He remains on IR, unavailable in week 7. So that might impact Sam Darnold. Maybe a touchdown I expected to hit is a little bit more shaky, but Aaron Jones questionable as well with a hamstring injury. Didn't practice Wednesday, but then was limited Thursday and Friday. So sounds a little bit more likely to suit up, but it's still a game time decision. I'm not quite sure. It sounds pretty 50-50. They also traded for Cam Akers, which is not a good sign if they need more depth at the position. So Ty Chandler, I do think, is a legit pickup. If he's still available, I would consider him for the sake of depth at least, and he would be the guy to pivot to behind Aaron Jones in this offense. So I'll give you a contingent rank on Ty Chandler, but at the moment I still ranked Aaron Jones. It sounds like Jones is probably going to be available. In New England, Rhamondre Stevenson, though, questionable with a foot injury, didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday, but was full on Friday. It sounds like Stevenson will be good to go. So Antonio Gibson loses value. He's no longer the guy. And overall, this helps Drake May and the Patriots offense. Gibson was not a RB1. Last week, he was not very successful at all. So Stevenson helps them a lot. I feel a little bit more confident in my pick for them to win the game. But in the Giants offense, both Devin Singletary and Malik Nabers are active. Singletary is practicing. That's a problem for Tyrone Tracy, a little bit of a crowded 50-50 committee. We'll see who establishes themselves as the number one running back in this backfield. But Malik Nabers will play. He won't miss a third game with that concussion. He is good to go against Philly. In the Jets offense, Tyler Conklin is questionable with a hip injury, limited Wednesday, Thursday, but was full on Friday. So expect him to play. He will be fine. And in Philly, Dallas Goedert is out with that hamstring injury. So maybe Grant Calcaterra gets some targets, but I'm not confident enough to actually rank him. I think overall, it's just more work for Saquon Barkley. In Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson is active and is expected to start. A weird situation going on with the Steelers. And if I had to guess, I don't know for sure, this is my assumption. When they signed Russell Wilson, it was with a promise that he would get the opportunity to start. But when he got hurt in training camp, it forced Justin Fields onto the starting roster. And at the moment, they have to give Russell Wilson a chance. It was part of the deal. So they're kind of throwing him under the bus. I think they want to stick with Fields. And against the Jets defense, I think Russell Wilson could really struggle. But he is forcing their hand, forced to step into the mix. And I think it'd actually be easier to move off of him and go back to Justin Fields after it's proven that he sucks, rather than have him lingering around as the backup with all of the controversy regarding whether or not he will get a chance. So I kind of understand the decision, but I think it'd probably be better to just stick with Fields overall. But at the moment, it sounds like Russell Wilson will get the start, and I'm not quite sure how that impacts any of the players. Maybe there's more red zone targets available with fewer scrambles from the quarterback, but the offense might suck as well. They might not even make it to the red zone with Russell Wilson. So at the moment, I'm staying put on all my ranks with the Steelers. Other than the quarterbacks, I think it's going to be pretty much similar to what we've seen so far this season in that offense. So weird situation. We'll see how long Russell Wilson actually remains the quarterback. Fields will have some packages. He will get a few snaps in this game, and I think he's the starter once again as early as next week. But for now, we're rolling with Russell Wilson, but Cordell Patterson is out. In San Francisco, both kickers, Jake Moody and his replacement, Matt Wright, is out, and that means Anders Carlson would be the new kicker in San Francisco. He's had some problems with accuracy in Green Bay in the past. They cut him earlier this year. Jordan Mason, though, questionable with a shoulder injury, limited all week in practice, but was wearing a non-contact jersey on Friday. It sounds like he'll play, but I don't expect to see a full workload for him. I think he'll be active, but it's a very risky bet, terrible matchup, and I do think Isaac Guerendo will get a few touches as well. So kind of worried about it, but McCaffrey remains on IR, so Mason is still their number one running back, but Juwan Jennings, who played excellent against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, is out for this game, so kind of a bummer there. However, Ricky Pearsall is expected to play. He's been activated off of IR. He was full in practice all week. So Ricky Pearsall does help Brock Purdy, but overall, the only one I really trust to go off in this game would be George Kittle. I worry it's a very low-scoring defensive battle against the Chiefs. While I was editing, I got some news about Kenneth Walker, who is questionable now with an illness. He was added to the injury report, but he's been full in practice all week long. As long as he's not like 104 degrees, if he has a massive fever, I think he'll play. I think he'll be fine. Usually illnesses are not the end of the world. But just in case he doesn't play, Zach Charbonnet would be the handcuff to own, and he would be a top 12 running back if active, if Walker can't go. In Tampa Bay, though, Mike Evans is fully active. He will not be limited with that hamstring injury. He barely played on 50% of snaps last week, so he's good to go, and it looks like Rachaad White will also play. Limited with that foot injury on Wednesday and Thursday, but was full in practice on Friday. So Rachaad White expected to play. Sean Tucker loses all value. In Tennessee, Tyjae Spears is out, so Tony Pollard will get all of the touches in this backfield basically, but Will Levis not going to start. He's questionable with a shoulder injury, and they've already made the decision they are going with Mason Rudolph this week, but I'm not convinced that actually helps their offense overall. I don't think it's really going to move the needle. I'm still not trying to start Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins. A big gamble with the Titans offense with anyone other than Tony Pollard this week. In Washington, though, the last team to mention would be Brian Robinson Jr. of the Commanders, questionable with a knee injury, limited in practice all week long, and is expected to play. But will he see a full workload? I'm not quite sure. He didn't practice at all last week and didn't suit up. He practiced only one day 2 weeks ago and scored 2 touchdowns, then was on the bench after halftime. So hopefully he plays the full game, but it's not a guarantee. I still think in such a good matchup against the Panthers, though, you want to start him. He's been excellent this year, and he probably finds the end zone again. So I'm still going to start Brian Robinson. It sounds like he'll play. Otherwise, I want to make one note regarding weather. The game in London might have some rain. It's not guaranteed. According to the Google forecast, right before kickoff, the rain is supposed to die down. So maybe Google's wrong, maybe it lasts longer, but rain should be done when the game kicks off. However, the wind is supposed to be about 16 to 18 miles per hour. Wind is a slight factor in that one as well. Otherwise, the forecasts are all clear. Nothing else to worry about in terms of weather this week. Now, let's get to my updated rankings, where we're going to start at running back, and I did make a few changes. I did take out Jonathan Taylor, previously ranked at number 4, so everybody behind him should move up one spot because of this. But I upgraded James Cook 5 spots, knowing he's fully healthy is a boost. I definitely trust James Cook no matter what, a must start in your lineup, and I definitely think he's better than Alvin Kamara this week, along with Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. So he moves up 5 spots. I do trust him a lot, especially with the questionable status for Ray Davis. I expect plenty of volume for James Cook. So now I rank him at number 8, but I did downgrade Chuba Hubbard by 2 spots because I'm legitimately worried about Diontae Johnson's availability in this game. And without him on the field, it's just so obvious Chuba Hubbard is their only legit weapon, and there will be a lot more stacked boxes to limit him. So while the volume might increase, I think the efficiency will go down, and I'd rather go with Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery straight up over Chuba Hubbard. So I did bump him down 2 spots overall behind the Lions running backs, but still a top 12 option. B-Rob and J.K. Dobbins move up with no Jonathan Taylor, but I inserted Rhamondre Stevenson pretty much exactly where Tyrone Tracy was previously. If Rhamondre's available, he will see potentially 25 touches in this game. The Jags are an excellent matchup for running backs this season, and I was kind of confident in the floor for Gibson. Now I think the ceiling is unlocked. I think Stevenson probably scores a touchdown. He has played well in competitive games. The volume should be there for Rhamondre. So as long as he's active, as long as he's 100% and the volume isn't capped, I do think Stevenson is a top 15 running back this week. Great matchup for him against the Jaguars. One of the true workhorses in this week's game action. Tony Pollard, along with the top 22, all move up a little bit as Tyrone Tracy gets taken out. We'll get to him in just a sec. But Jordan Mason does jump over Aaron Jones. I'm more confident that Jordan Mason actually plays this week than Aaron Jones. They're both listed as questionable, not ideal, but I do think Mason is a little bit safer given the game time decision status for Aaron Jones. So if Jones does play, I would still start him as a low-end RB2, high-end flex play, but the matchup is not good for Mason or Aaron Jones, and that's why neither of them are top 20. But the workload should probably be there. If anyone's going to score a touchdown in their backfields, it would be them, and that's why there's still high-end flex plays. Not the worst options overall, but right at 24 behind Aaron Jones is where I put in Trey Sermon, and I'm a little worried he gets vultured by Richardson on the goal line, but he will see close to a full workload, maybe not as many checkdowns as he was getting with Joe Flacco, but I do expect at least like 15 overall touches for Trey Sermon, and that's kind of more than I can say for Tyrone Tracy. I do not know exactly what's going to happen in that backfield in terms of touch split with him and Devin Singletary. I do think you'd prefer to have Tracy, but I bumped him down 9 spots. It's just not as safe in a committee with Devin Singletary. So he's now just RB25, just a kind of risky flex play, and I understand if you just want to bench him entirely if you're more confident in Singletary than I am. But he's kind of the last one I would consider kind of on the fence there, right with Tank Bigsby. Kind of a weird situation. If Etienne does play, it'll be a committee as well, and they are a little bit dicey. So he moves up 1 spot overall as some other players get taken out. I'm not actually more confident in Bigsby. It's kind of a toss-up, and I genuinely feel like once you pass Kareem Hunt, whether it's matchup or the overall offense or injury concerns, all of these players are very risky. I'd almost rather just go with top 30 wide receivers guaranteed. So good luck with them. But I also did upgrade Nick Chubb 5 spots as well. I'm starting to feel like the touchdown is pretty guaranteed for Chubb in this game. He probably doesn't see more than 12 touches in my opinion, but one of them is probably near the goal line, and they probably try to get him involved and get the crowd going, give him a touchdown. There's not been much to celebrate about in Cleveland this year. So Nick Chubb's return is a big deal. Why not get him a touchdown? Make everyone feel good about him getting back. So he moves up 5 spots. Bucky Irving moves down 4 spots. If Rachaad White's going to play, it's not as safe. And behind Bucky is where I inserted Singletary and Rachaad White. I think they'll be the backups, so to speak, in their backfields. It'll be close to 50-50, but I'd rather trust Tyrone Tracy and Bucky Irving straight up above both players. So I do rank Singletary 5 spots below Tracy, Rachaad White 2 spots behind Bucky, and we'll see what happens. I can't say for sure what will actually occur. But with all these other players entering the mix, that's why Eckler and Zach Moss moved down 3 spots. I am keeping Javonte at RB34. I was a little too low on my ranking with him earlier in the week, but I did upgrade Ty Chandler 2 spots overall. If Aaron Jones plays, this is where I rank Ty Chandler. I do expect some more volume for him with limited snaps for Jones, but I'm not quite sure if Jones will actually play. So if Jones does sit, I would bump up Chandler all the way to where I rank Aaron Jones. I'd have him right above Trey Sermon, exactly where Aaron Jones is right now at RB23. Chandler would be a high-end flex play, but not top 20. The matchup is not very good against Detroit. So I'd worry about the touchdown. He'd be kind of dependent for that. and the volume would be the only saving grace. So not the best start if Aaron Jones is inactive, but still worth a top 25 ranking. Ty Chandler is interesting. Travis Etienne, though, would be ranked right behind him if both players are active. I do not feel that good about Etienne. I think Bigsby has earned more of a role in this offense, and at best it's a 50-50 split, and I don't even think that'll be the case. So Etienne might not even finish the game. He carries a lot of risk. I would be benching Etienne no matter what in this game, only ranking him at RB 36. So with all those players entering the rankings, that's why Raheem Mostert moves down 6 spots, Madison down 5, Guerendo down 3, but with the injury to Ray Davis, his new questionable designation, he moves down 5 spots as well. I'm more confident in James Cook, but Antonio Gibson moves down 15 spots overall. With Stevenson active, Antonio Gibson is nowhere near as safe. So not going to start him. He's a running back you can drop now. And overall, everyone kind of moves down by 3 or so spots collectively behind him. As I mentioned earlier, Charbonnet, an elite handcuff in case Walker can't go with that illness. I would rank him number 12 right behind Chuba Hubbard if available to start. If there's no Walker, you have to start Charbonnet if you have him. So a lot of changes at running back. This is the position that moves around the most. There's a lot of players shuffling around overall. But now let's get to wide receiver, where I did make a few changes, but not that many. I did bump down Diontae Johnson. He was previously wide receiver 16. Now he's wide receiver 24. He moves down 8 spots. I'm legitimately concerned he misses the game and isn't 100%. If active. So he is not as safe. If he does play, this is where I would rank him, and he might not play at all. So I would worry about it. He's not a top 20 receiver entering week 7, but I did upgrade Marvin Harrison Jr. Now that he's cleared from the concussion protocol, there's not as much risk going into Monday night surrounding his status. So I trust him more. He moves up 6 spots overall, and these players above him move up 1 spot because they do jump Diontae Johnson. So overall, Marvin Harrison moves up 6 spots, Diontae moves down 8, and Amari Cooper does get jumped by Marvin Harrison as well. So he moves down 1 spot down to 25, but overall inside the top 30, everything else would be the same. However, at 33, I did remove Jakobi Meyers from the rankings. He's not going to play, so all these players move up 1 spot, and I would rather go with Tyler Lockett over Michael Pittman and Josh Downs with Richardson at quarterback. So they stay put while Lockett jumps them. With Jakobi Meyers exiting, that's why Pittman and Downs don't move down at all. However, Josh Palmer, I think, is more interesting with no Quentin Johnston. I upgraded him 20 spots, previously unranked. Now he is a safer bet because Ladd McConkey is also questionable as well. So Palmer, a bit more interesting. I'd still only trust McConkey, but at wide receiver 44, I think he's just as much of a gamble as guys like Tutu Atwell, Christian Watson, and Romeo Doubs. You're hoping for a touchdown, but it's not the worst bet to make overall. Outside the top 50, though, I did rank Ricky Pearsall at 52, Bub Means at 53, and Trey Tucker at 54. None of them were ranked previously on Wednesday. So they do enter the mix, and that's all of the changes at wide receiver. Everyone behind them moves down 2 spots. So at quarterback, though, I did make a few slight changes. I'm a little bit less confident in Sam Darnold without TJ Hockenson. He's still a good streamer, but now at quarterback 11, I would rather go with Kyler Murray or Brock Purdy over Darnold without TJ Hockenson. So a little bit less valuable. I think that 3rd touchdown might be harder to predict without Hockenson. It's more unlikely to happen. So he moves down 2 spots, but otherwise I did change my rankings on Justin Fields, who moves down 11 spots. He was previously number 20 in the ranks, so that's why everybody else moves up. But Russell Wilson does move up 3 spots. Russell Wilson now quarterback 26. I still wouldn't start him, but he does move up a little bit. And Justin Fields is unstartable, now quarterback 31 behind Spencer Rattler. I don't know how much work he'll actually get on Sunday night. So not going to start Fields, not going to start Russell Wilson, but we'll see what happens in Pittsburgh. It is interesting, to say the least, what will happen with the Steelers offense. At tight end, though, I did remove TJ Hockenson, previously tight end number 7, so everyone behind him does move up 1 spot. And I did upgrade Will Dissly 5 spots, knowing that Hayden Hurst and Quentin Johnston are unavailable. Dissly has been good for about 4-ish points per game the last month or so. So Disley a little bit more valuable, but tight end is basically the same. And same goes for defense. I didn't make any changes at defense. So here on the screen are my top 20 rankings at quarterback, tight end, and defense. Not too many changes, but here it is. Go ahead and pause it if you want to make those lineup decisions. And here are my flex decisions for this game. The top 40 at running back and wide receiver. And honestly, once we hit Devon Achane, Jordan Mason, I think running back gets very risky, and only if you're desperate should you be starting them. If not, I would pivot to wide receiver, where I feel pretty confident in the top 36. I think up until Wan'Dale Robinson, the floor is pretty legit. I was wrong about Cortland Sutton earlier in the week. However, they have been averaging 10 points per game. Guys like McConkey through Wan'Dale should be good floor plays. But then with Addison, I think that's kind of the same risk reward proposition as a guy like Aaron Jones, Trey Sermon. It is a gamble, and it does get a lot more dicey after that point. So good luck to you. If you still have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comment section down below. But that's going to be it for this video, with one exception. I am making one change to my win-loss picks. I do not trust Russell Wilson at all as the quarterback. So it's not the fact that Adams is joining the Jets why I'm switching this pick. That is not the reason why. I just don't trust Russell Wilson at all, and I'm not going to bet on him against the Jets. I'll take the Jets on Sunday night. I don't feel great about it. This is a hard game to pick, but I'm just not going to roll with Russell Wilson. I previously went with Pittsburgh, assuming it would be Fields. With Russell Wilson, I am switching it. Give me Aaron Rodgers to beat the Steelers on Sunday night. So only one change there. Everything else remains the same, and that's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. My name's Adam Riancho. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.